New employee benefits and with it, new responsibilities from employers in Maryland are coming this summer. We're going to talk about what you need to know, whether you're an employer or an employee, and what all of this means to you on this week's Monday Morning Lawyer. Good morning, everybody. It is Jobeth Bowers, your Elkton accident and injury lawyer. And this week we are on one of those topics that I've mentioned to you that is not necessarily auto accident related. It's not what I do every day. And as a result, I'm going to introduce here a special guest. Maryland has passed a new law about something called the Family and Medical Leave Insurance. And starting later this year, if everything stays on track, it's going to mean different things for different people. But if you're an employer, it's going to be a new type of insurance that you're going to want to pick up. And if it's an employee, it's going to be another layer of medical leave and family leave. And with this, I've got somebody who's at the forefront of this, colleague of mine, Glenn Arrington, who is an insurance broker at a Group Benefit Strategies you're all over Maryland, but your main office is in Bel Air, Maryland. Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
Good morning, Jobeth. Thank you for having me and for us to discuss the new legislation bill that was passed back in 2022. And basically in the final session, it was House Bill 496 and Senate Bill 275, in which all Marylanders were required to get involved in this family medical leave insurance. And basically it was established for the Time to Care Act of 2022. And it's to create an insurance fund to provide partial wage replacement for workers taking time away from jobs to care for new babies, loved ones, people with serious health conditions or disabilities, or even for themselves. So this bill was enacted in 2022, but now Maryland has the requirements for all employers that have at least one W-2 employee must abide by this new regulation. And how it works is, starting in July 1st of this year, they will start collecting 0.45% of the employee's income. And after the third quarter of the year, they will submit that income from their payroll vendor to the Department of Labor into the state insurance fund. And they will collect that money for a total of 1 year. And at the end of that year, the state will now have collected enough revenue in the state insurance fund in order to pay out claims to policies for the state policy, basically, in which when somebody wants to put in a claim for taking care of a loved one or going out on a disability, they can actually go out starting July 1st of 2026 for up to 12 weeks, up to $1,000 of benefit paid out weekly. And that's really what the thrust of this family medical leave is about. I'm sure you have some questions you might want to ask, maybe pertaining to, does everybody have to do it? Who's exempt from it? Are there other options? Would that be a question you might think about?
Yeah, I mean, in general, because I want to make sure that we're talking about this from a perspective that, obviously employers are going to have to do something, but employees in the state of Maryland are going to have impact from this. It's going to take money out of their paychecks. It's going to give them additional benefits. Obviously, there's a give and take there. But what this feels like to me, and I guess this is where I'll start, is confirming that, for the longest time, at least as long as I can remember, federal law has had something that we refer to as FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. And what this was, in my understanding, was nothing more than protecting your job if you've worked somewhere for at least a year and you have to be off for a period of time because of this. There's no compensation under FMLA. It's just a protection to make sure that, if you've put in some time, a year or more, and have to leave for a period of time, that your job is secure. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Family Medical Leave Act is for 50 and over employee group sizes, and Family Medical Leave Act will still stay in effect in conjunction with this new law in Maryland, and it goes all the way down to one employee, one W-2 employee. So starting in July, any employer with one employee up to 14 employees W-2'd, the employer will have to take out 0.45% of their income or their salary or their hourly wages, and they will put that money aside for the third quarter and then submit that. Now, if you have 15 employees, here's the kicker. The employer has to match that. So an employer has to pay 0.45% and match it. So a good example would be somebody who makes $50,000 a year, and they have 15 employees. It works out to $225 a year for the employee to put into this, and $225 a year per employee up to however many employees they have based on their income. But using the example of $50,000, it would be about $225 for the employee and then $225 for the employer. It's almost like a FICA match, right? So the employee, if they're doing biweekly, it'd be about $8.95 taken out biweekly, and then the employer would have to match that 8.95. And that's, again, a rough number based on 50,000 as example. And it can go all the way up to 168,000, which is the Social Security match. Like a line item, you have Social Security, you'll have Medicare, and then you'll have, you have your unemployment, and then you'll have family medical leave as a line item on your paycheck stub. So again, this is a new thing. It's a good thing to be able to provide, a family medical leave paid benefit, unlike the Family Medical Leave Act. But it does come with some consequences, some consequences to the employer that they have to put aside some money for this. And a lot of employers are saying, well, do I have to do it? The answer is yes. Are there options? Well, yes, there are. And would you have any questions about what options and how you might want to word the question?
Yeah. So, initially it sounds like, obviously there's two categories there, 15 or more employees, 14 or less employees. And so I guess the first question I have, let's, because most of the businesses, and obviously there are plenty of very, very large businesses here in Cecil County, but I would say that the vast majority of our businesses probably, at least in quantity, fall in that smaller category. So what are the options there? Because it just sounds like this is going to be something that largely is handled wherever somebody's doing payroll. Most of us, I think, use an outside payroll company. So this is just going to be something that for my company, my payroll person is just going to grab that extra money, send it where it needs to go. What other options exist? Because on that lower, smaller business scale, this doesn't sound like, other than making sure that the logistics are happening, that there's a tremendous burden on the business owner. This is being paid for in those smaller companies by the employee. Are there workarounds to that? Is there a way, even at that's just the half for the employer, to chip in some, or what options exist there?
So that's a great question. And by the way, I've sat in on hearings about the bill, the Department of Labor discussing the bill with the Senate Finance Committee. And in that hearing, it discusses what options that employers have, right? So the first option is, if somebody wants to self-fund the product, by all means, any employer from 2 employees, 1 employee can self-fund it, all the way up to thousands of employees. And they basically have to write up a plan document that states that they are going to adhere to all of the parameters of the benefit to be able to pay out, $1,000 up to 12 weeks. They have to show their finances, to the state of Maryland, that they can actually afford to do a self-funded product. So that's one option. The other option is you could use an insurance company, because this benefit is called a statutory benefit. And basically, it's disability insurance. There's disability carriers out there, many of them, that have set aside this particular statutory benefit product. And that employer and a good broker like myself can go to their client and say, provide me with information on your male, female population, provide me with your salary of your employees, provide me with what state they're in, and the income annually. And then that broker and agent like myself can send it off to a private insurance company and get a quote back. And again, going back to the state plan, it's 0.45 by the employee. And if you're over 15, 0.45 match by the employer. Well, guess what? Some of these insurance companies can actually come in more competitive than that. They will come down to maybe 0.60, and then that employee pays 0.30 of their income and 0.30 by the employer. And everybody saves in how much the state program, how much you have to put money into the state fund. And that insurance company will provide you with a contract showing that it meets the parameters of the benefits. And then when this plan goes into effect July 1st, prior to that, that employer May 1st has to go to what they call an opt-out. They will go to the Department of Labor and put in that they want to opt out of the benefit. And basically, they put in a declaration of opting out. And then that insurance company will provide them with a letter of intent or a copy of the contract stating that they're able to provide those parameters. And in effect, they will not have to pay into it for a full year. So they get an reprieve. They don't have to pay into it for a year. And then at the end of that year, they would then pay the insurance company the premium quarterly, just like they would the state. And then they can have their payroll company take the deductions and allocate for the deductions on the employer portion. So it's a great way for an employer that is required to do this new program and find a more affordable way to do it as opposed to going through the state program. Now, we will find that some companies out there that may have a high population of younger childbearing employees, and those employees obviously may have more of a risk. So therefore, in some cases, those private insurance companies may not be as competitive. But I've found, since I've been running these proposals for my clients, that about 90% of them are saving money from the state program. There is one caveat, and that is if you do opt out and you do the declaration of opting out, you do have to pay a small fee to the state to opt out. And it depends upon the size of the company. Small employers, if they're under 15 employees or less, it's $100, and it can max out based on different tiers of employees up to $1,000 a year for that opt-out declaration and basically a fee to opt out of the state program.
So that I want to talk about that extra year that you're basically not paying if you go through a private, broker like you and a private insurance company, because the benefit, you've talked about like the base plan of paying to the state, the 0.45% starts July of 2025, but the benefits don't kick in potentially until 2026, correct?
That is correct. That's correct. And that's a great question, because it took the state is actually creating their own insurance program behind the scenes. And the state of Maryland appropriated $40 million out there in order to set that aside to build the IT, the back room, be able to have these third-party administrators provide that benefit to the state of Maryland. To have the state of Maryland state fund, and that state fund has to be funded for a full year, but they had to have money to build the IT so that, like you said, payroll companies have to be able to take that money and then they have to place it somewhere. So the Department of Labor is setting up a banking institution, how they can do ACH transfer of money into that state banking fund and hold on to those funds. And also they're going to be hiring 350 to 400 employees to run the back room, customer service, paying out claims. And by the way, the state claims that it's going to be about a 10-day turnaround when somebody submits a claim to start paying out on it. And some of these private insurance companies, the turnaround's 5 days. So there's also some other advantages as going with a private insurance company. In addition to postponing it for a year, in addition to saving in how much you have to pull from your employee and how much you have to pay as the employer if you have over 15 employees. So there's several different benefits of going private. And that's what I've been offering to my clients that I have with my company is Group Benefit Strategies. And we've been on the cutting edge when this legislation was founded in 2022. I also go down and testify for new bills in legislation in the industry that I'm in, the health and life insurance industry. So our company and myself, we take a very active role and try to help our clients. And also we try to spread the word to our, citizens in Maryland to see another way to help relieve the burden of this additional cost.
Yeah, I mean, this is some groundbreaking stuff. We put your contact information for somebody, especially business owners, because this is not something, obviously it's something that's going to impact employees all throughout the state, but the plans need to be set up or facilitated by the employer. So if you're an employer that wants to save money, save your employees money on this, not pay for it until it's actually providing benefit, Glenn's office number's right down here. He can run through all those scenarios with you and make sure, like you said, 90% of the time you've been able to help people. So if you're in that 10%, obviously calling and getting this information isn't going to obligate you to sign up for one of these plans. If the better strategy for you and your organization happens to be going through the state the way that it's originally designed, then you'll do that, I assume. There's an event coming up. Let's talk about that. This is also for business owners to learn, obviously in 20 minutes or so for this, we have a limited amount of time. We can only kind of touch the surface level. But I'm going to throw this up here. This is something that the local Cecil County Chamber of Commerce is hosting that you are part of. Tell us a little bit more about this event that is on February 19th.
Sure. So, I met with the Cecil County Chamber of Commerce, Jessica there, and said, hey, listen, I think we need to spread this out to the community. And I'm willing to host an event and be a sponsor. And I said, you can invite some other brokers that may want to also that are part of the chamber, but we are the keynote sponsor and speaker for it. It's going to be held it's going to be a hybrid. It's going to be held at the Singerly Fire Hall. So if anybody wants to come there in person and they are a chamber member, they can come as a chamber member, and there would be no cost to you. We're also doing it online through the chamber on a link that you could register through the Chamber of Commerce. And if you're not a member, they're charging a $5 fee at the door so that you could come in and you could listen in person and ask questions and have answers. We are going to have a specialist present who has been doing this in other states. And oh, by the way, this is the 10th state that has implemented this. Delaware was the most recent one. And we're going to have Brooks Wright from Shelter Point, who is one of the insurance companies that provides this statutory benefit.
Excellent. So that is on February 19th, 9:30 a.m. to 11. Go to cecilchamber.com to register. You're going to want to register whether you're going in person or on the Zoom. But obviously, especially if you're doing the Zoom, get on there and register early, because we know how it is getting these links and then being able to find them, get all that stuff set up ahead of time. Super important stuff. And again, if you are an employee, obviously you're not going to come to this. You're not going to call Glenn about setting these benefits up, but say something to your employer. Make sure that they're aware of this, because I can tell you that if I didn't know Glenn and have Glenn approach me about this, because Glenn does my company's health insurance, I wouldn't know about it. It would just come as an absolute surprise to me. And my assumption, correct me if I'm wrong, is come July of this year, if I do nothing about it, they're just going to start taking money out of my employees' paychecks, correct?
Yes, your payroll provider will start. They'll be the one to tell you last minute, oh, by the way,
Right.
you need to start taking money out for your family medical leave insurance. And at that point, it's too late to opt out. Okay. Because
you said that has to happen a month or two before, like May, right?
That is correct. They do give up to an extension of August, but you don't want to be late and you've already paid into it and you have to pay the first quarter, and then you can opt out the other 3 quarters. So you don't want to be a procrastinator. You want to get information. You want to make an educated decision one way or another. And then that way, at least you know what you don't know.
Yeah. So whether or not you're working for a company that's big or small, if you're in the state of Maryland, ask your employer, hey, what are you doing about the new family law? They should, if they don't know what it is, give them this. Hopefully you're seeing this before February 19th. Although I'm assuming that after this first one leading up to the May opt-out date, there's going to be more of these and more opportunities to learn about this if somebody can't make this one on February 19th.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are going to work really hard. The state of Maryland also is going to try to send out community notices out there. But again, my final comment is, if you have an agent and broker, you may want to reach out to them and discuss it. If you don't have an agent and broker that's brought it up to you, shame on them. Please reach out to us. We can give you all the information. It's a simple thing. It's a simple thing to get a quote, and there's no obligation, and you decide what you want to do. Go with the state program, whether you want to self-fund it or whether you want to go the private plan. Simply
Excellent.
Up to you.
So yeah, group benefit strategies, 410-420-2828. The number is displayed down there. I'm going to put the link in the YouTube description. It's going to take you to cecilchamber.com. Also take you another link to Glenn's website. That way you can multiple ways to get in touch with him about this. Also, I mean, while you're there, while you're on the phone with him, have him take a look at your company's health insurance, because that's what we did years ago. And that's obviously how we're in the loop on this and able to provide that information. So I really appreciate you taking the time this morning to share this information with everybody. I already know, but I'll probably be there on the 19th anyway. So we'll see you there. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jobeth. Have a great day.
And as always, if you've got other questions for us for future podcasts, if they're accident related, it's going to be me. Shoot that message up there to info@bowerslawmd.com. If it's not accident related, like we're doing right now, I'm going to get an expert on here. We're going to talk about that thing that's not accident related, because I only know what Glenn's told me about this and what I've read on my own. So I'm not answering these questions for you. An expert like Glenn is. So thank you very much. See you guys all next week. Be well, be safe out there.
Thank you.